Hi, welcome to my talk. My name is Bowen from Singapore Management University. The topic of my presentation is mainly about code reuse. And in this work, we focus on the code, particularly in library level, with two concrete and opposite scenarios. The first scenario is called library reuse, means that developers replacing self-implemented code with an external library. Although it is common, reuse decisions are not frequently revisited, and there is no clear evidence that the decisions are always quality driven in the literature. The second scenario is reimplementation, that developers replacing an imported external library with self-implemented code. Although reimplementation is less common than library reuse, libraries were not always used by developers, and developers sometimes still choose to re-implement the behavior of an existing library. We found that the reason about why developers re-implement code instead of using external library haven't been investigated in the literature. So to fill the gap, we propose three research questions to investigate the rationale behind the two scenarios. The first and the second research questions are mainly answer the reasons behind library reuse and reimplementation. And the third research question is about under what circumstance do developers prefer to reuse or reimplement code. First, I'd like to briefly introduce the overall design of our study. In summary, we focus on two program languages, Java and Python. And we collect our experimental data in three ways. First, we design an open survey to collect the opinions of developers for both library reuse and reimplementation through online communities, developers in IT companies, and software engineering researchers. Second, we also propose an approach to collect the real-world cases from version control system of open source projects from GitHub, FJORD, and existing work. The approach is based on an assumption that if a pair of removed and added method invocation is located close to each other, then they are more likely to be library use or reimplementation. So that's why we introduce the concept of relative distance to filter unrelated commits. And then we manually identify each of the remaining commits to see whether it belongs to library reuse or reimplementation or neither. So for the identified cases of library reuse and reimplementation, we send an individual survey with the identified concrete code change to the corresponding developers. So in a sense that the individual survey is customized. For the last min, we also manually analyze commit messages as we found that the developers also mention the reasons in the commit messages sometimes. Due to the time limitation, here I only choose to present the answers to the third research question, which is related to both library reuse and reimplementation. We found that the findings derived from two different program languages are similar, and in summary, nearly half of our participants prefer to reuse an existing code in any case. However, they also want to make their own implementations if they need a higher code flexibility or they cannot find any libraries that satisfy their requirement, or the library is not light and simple enough. According to the results, we derived several findings. Here, I choose to present two of them and their corresponding implications on how the existing library recommendation tool or even the code recommendation tools can do better in the future. The first finding is about what kind of information that developers want to know for their decision making. For example, whether the recommended library is developed by a team with high reputation or it is well documented, and so on. So, from this perspective, display libraries characteristic can help developers to quickly assess the quality of a library. Also, the recommendation tool can group similar library for developers to compare and select the library they prefer. In such a group, recommendation tool can further rank the libraries based on the numbers of users, reviews, and documentation quality. The second finding is about sometimes developers need warning more than recommendation. If an imported library is deprecated or badly rated or inactively maintained, a library recommendation tool may want to suggest the developer to replace the library with an alternative library. To do that, the recommendation tool can collect those informations from the library's website and provide useful warning. That's pretty much I have for my presentation, and you are very welcome to read our paper and check out more details. Thanks for your listening.